So we had talked before about the idea that there's what's right and what's wrong and what's legal and what's illegal, and sometimes the laws and what's right and what's wrong may be in conflict with each other, which leads us to what I don't call, somebody else made it up, the ethical legal framework. And we talked before, what's right and what's wrong is not always clear. It depends on your value system. What's legal and not legal is not always clear, because what's legal in one state might be illegal in another state. For example, if you buy cannabis in one state, you can go to jail. If you buy cannabis in another state, you'll have to pay a sales tax. So same action, legal or illegal, depending on where you are, and the laws are always changing. Oops, back. Oh, stop. What the heck is this? Oh, okay. You'd think I'd have read this. So when we as business people are making decisions, there are various points in the decision-making process where it might be smart to take a step back and say, okay, what are we doing? The very first is when we set our goals, the long-term objectives for our organization, which we'll talk about towards the end of the semester. And is what we are doing in the best interest of all of our stakeholders. We had talked earlier in the semester about the stakeholder concept, which recognizes that for a business to be successful, it's not just the investors that have to be paid off, but you need to have customers, you need to have a community, you need to have employees, you need to have an environment that's all sustainable. So the first issue is what we're trying to accomplish consistent with having a sustainable business opportunity. And the next is, what are we going to do, the tools that we are going to use to achieve our goal. I have, my wife works for an organization, and one of the sayings in that organization is, it's not the what, it's the how. Is you can do the same thing, and just depending on how you approach it, it can either be nice or not nice. I just remember once when somebody, when I was a sales manager, and one of our vendors was, or excuse me, one of our customers was hitting us up for a charitable contribution. And I was not in a position to make a charitable contribution, and it's very dangerous to say no to a customer who wants a charitable contribution, and I had to be very tactful and explain the situation, and the guy got back to me and he said, you know, that's the nicest refusal I have ever heard. We will continue to do business with you. And then the next level is, what's your real motive? We talked before about business is done by people. People have egos. There are personal agendas sometimes that are involved in the business process. Where are those? And then the last one is, what are the consequences of your decision? Did you achieve the objective? And then you've heard about the concept of unintended consequences, where you make a decision in this area, and because you've made the decision in this area, something over here happens. For example, I do not require attendance in this class. As a result, we have, say, about 4%. Pretty good for this time of the semester. Which leads us to the ethical legal framework, which is just a tool for evaluating these decisions. And this recognizes that most business decisions are made in private because we don't want to let everybody else know what's going on with our planning process. However, after you've made the decision, it's going to come under public scrutiny, either because you announce it or because you start implementing the decision and people notice the consequences of the implementation. So that leads us to this ethical legal framework. Looks kind of like a bullseye, doesn't it? And what this looks at is, we have, this is the famous 2x2 matrix. On one axis we have whether it's ethical or unethical, and on the other axis we have whether it's legal or illegal. And we have in the upper, I don't know my left from my right, so it's on the ethical legal quadrant is nobody has any issues with that, and we would hopefully all be operating in that area where everything that we do is both right and legal. Then we come into the ethical and illegal quadrant, and we had talked before that there are some laws that we believe are wrong. And there may be situations where I act ethically, but I may be breaking a law. And then we have down in the lower, either left or right, depending on whether you know your left or your right from your not, your legal but unethical. There are things that are legal but wrong. And a lot of unethical business practices take shelter in the, it's not against the law. So I was just a wonderful article about one of our presidential candidates using a tax device that was technically not against the law, but everybody who gave an opinion thought it was unethical. We'll see. And then in the other quadrant, we have things that are both wrong and illegal, and hopefully nobody would ever operate in that quadrant because you go to jail. And then this also takes into account that the reality is that your decision-making is going to take place in private, and it's only after you've made the decision that it becomes able to be seen by the public, and that's where you get the response as to whether or not it's legal, illegal, ethical, or unethical. Make sense? Boring? Yes.